Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay. I'm joined here in the studio again this week with my friend, my colleague, my consigliere, Miss Courtland Long. Courtland, how are we doing today?
I'm great, Dave. How are you?
I am doing phenomenal. How about this fall weather we're having?
It's beautiful, yeah.
It is beautiful. Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. You know, we went to the Congenital Heart Walk from our good friend Jackie Pecora and the Children's Heart Foundation. It was super fun.
It was a lot of fun, and we saw Team Adam for the third or fourth year in a row now.
Yeah, we saw a lot of teams that have been there for many years. It's great.
Absolutely, and the weather was fantastic. The walkers were out. A lot of money was raised for children's heart defects. That was great. They exceeded their goal. So all the way around, great. Courtland, we have a big weekend this weekend, right? It's Halloween.
Yes.
Now, are you going to be out trick-or-treating this year?
I don't plan to be trick-or-treating, but I think I'm going to go hit up Fright Fest at Six Flags.
Okay. Well, I hope you have a good time.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Always.
We have another big week coming up because you know what tonight is? No, you don't. It's the first game in the World Series. We have the Mets and the Royals gonna go at it tonight. Game number one.
That explains why I don't know. I'm a Cubs fan. I've blocked it out.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but the Mets and the Royals are going to go at it. I wish both teams the best of luck. I'm going to be watching. So good luck out there, guys, and congratulations to both teams. It's definitely an achievement getting there. Well, Courtland, we have a fantastic show for everybody today. We have Dr. Patel going to be coming in the studio. He is an expert in the area of allergy. We're going to be talking about allergies. We're going to be talking about food allergies. So I can't wait to get him in the studio. I've got a lot of questions for him. If you like what you're going to be hearing and you like the show, chat to the right. We use the hashtag #RealStories. We'd appreciate it if you would do the same. Well, Courtland, speaking of Halloween, we always have a health tip. This week is no exception. This is a great health tip given that Halloween is coming up this week. And Courtland, what health tip do we have for the viewers this week?
Well, these health tips are a little bit spooky, and we're not really talking about ghosts and monsters here. We're talking about children's diets. You know, Halloween is really a holiday where kids can collect all the candy in the world, but with obesity rates triple what they were a generation ago, and the amount of cavities among children increasing for the first time in 40 years, Halloween can actually be a pretty big nightmare.
Now, can we step back a minute? Give me that statistic one more time. The obesity rate is tripled?
Triple what it was a generation ago.
Wow, so we're getting heavier, and the number of cavities in young children and young adults is increasing by what?
For the first time in 40 years.
Wow, so we have a situation on our hands, right? And so you're right, they're going to be out trick-or-treating, right? These children are looking for candy and good candy at that.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the health tips that we have for parents to, help us combat this obesity and this cavity epidemic we seem to be under?
Well, we have some really good health tips, and the first one is to hand out non-sugary foods. Now, oftentimes people who are going out shopping for Halloween candy, they'll grab the first bag that they see it's on sale, and they'll think, that will do. But a lot of these candies that are really popular have really high amounts of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and other potentially harmful ingredients. So we should really remember to take some time, read the labels, and maybe think about something a little bit healthier to hand out.
Now, speaking of healthy snacks to hand out for Halloween, what about raisins? That seems to be, because a healthy snack and a healthy treat for Halloween doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have to be sweet. Am I right?
Right, yeah. I mean, raisins could be good. A lot of kids really like raisins, and there's many different varieties. But I think also you don't necessarily have to hand out candy. You could hand out fun little trinkets and toys or packets of stickers. I'm thinking about Halloween candy.
Yes, you are. Really, stickers for Halloween? Really?
Sure, why not?
Huh?
Kids love stickers. Little Halloween-themed stickers, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
but they love the Reese's Cups and the Snickers better than the stickers.
Well, that's not very healthy, Dave.
It is not very healthy. Now, speaking of raisins, I like the chocolate-covered raisins. Would that fall in the
Yeah, I
right
think,
category?
that's like right in the sweet spot of healthy, but also candy related.
But you don't want to eat too much.
Not too much.
That's a great tip. I have one for you.
Okay.
Okay, so never go out on an empty stomach. You never go food shopping on an empty stomach, right? And you should never go trick-or-treating on an empty stomach, because when I was a kid, we couldn't afford those fancy things to put our candy in. So what I used to do is I used to take my pillow out of my pillowcase, and that's what I used to get my haul.
Yeah.
So now you can imagine a big pillowcase, you could bring in a lot of candy. Now, if you go out on an empty stomach, you're going to be hungry, and what are you going to be doing? You're going to be reaching in that pillowcase, you're going to be eating a lot of candy, and that is just no good for you. So here is a tip for the parents. Feed your children a healthy meal before you go out trick-or-treating, and it's going to limit the amount of times they reach in that bag, that pillowcase, and pull out something and put it in their mouth. So have a healthy meal, then go out and enjoy yourself trick-or-treating.
Well, that's a really good idea also, because if children are filling up on a lot of candy just before they go to bed, you're going to have a nightmare of a time trying to get these kids tucked in and ready to go to sleep.
The sugar high.
Absolutely.
That's point 2B.
2B.
Right, because
Yeah.
I had point 2, and I kind of added to that, so we'll call that 2B. We have 1/3 last point. Courtland, let's hear it.
Well, tip number 3 is hide the rest. All this candy that kids get on Halloween, it doesn't all have to be eaten that very night. So you can have your children pick out a couple pieces that are their favorite, and they can eat that then or the next day, and then put the rest away for later. There's a lot of holiday parties that are probably coming up. You can put some candy out for those, or give the candy out, little by little over the next couple months.
That's a good point. Put it away. What I used to do is I used to put all my candy out on the table. I used to separate. I used to get the Reese's Cups, the Snickers, the Milky Ways, and the Kit Kats. I used to put those in the freezer. And boy, there's nothing better than a frozen Kit Kat or a Reese's Cup after your dinner for a nice little snack. Now, when Dr. Patel gets in here, I'm curious to find out, at Halloween, do a lot of nut allergies surface because maybe these kids get some candy with nuts in there, and all of a sudden they, have an issue, and so they have to go see the allergist the next week. I'm wondering if we see kind of any trends or patterns there. He'll be here in a minute. We're going to find out. If you like what we're talking about, chat to the right. We use the hashtag Real Stories. We'd like you to do the same with Courtland. Every week we send our interns out on the streets of New York to see exactly what New Yorkers know about Halloween, ghosts, goblins, eating healthy snacks, and all the other stuff that you're going to see in this video. You want to watch it with me?
I would love to.
I would love for you to watch it with me as well. Maddie, roll the tape.
So, would you consider Halloween to be a bit of a nightmare for children's health?
It depends. I'd say it really depends on whether parents limit how much candy their children eat, and I feel like that's a big thing that they should do. Like, parents should realize if their children are overweight and should limit them.
A bit of a nightmare, definitely so, because I think that's the time where they consume the most candy and the most sweets, and they don't really have any type of control. The parents don't really substitute. I mean, I can't say everyone's parents, but yeah.
Sometimes they put hazardous things in the candy, and on top of that, I don't believe the sweets and candy, especially the ones that are manufactured in America, are suitable for children.
So what sort of foods or sweets do you think people should hand out in terms of being more healthier and satisfying for kids other than just candy alone?
I mean, maybe they could do like candy apples or even like chocolate covered raisins. I mean, those types of things are still fruits, but they still have a candy effect to them. So the kid doesn't feel like I'm just getting, an apple or something. This is not like what I wanted.
I think people should hand out maybe fruit baskets or little fruit bags, or maybe fruit cups, Fruits are nice and sweet. Children love to eat fruits because of their taste, and they post positive to their growth and development.
Definitely a candy that is sugar-free, and I know that a lot of kids think that there's a taste difference, but it's really not that big of a taste difference, and it's better for them.
The obesity and cavity rates in small children are known to be increasing in today's society. How do you think we can prevent it?
I think we can prevent it by first parents educating themselves on nutrition for kids, especially for an expecting mother.
Well, definitely brushing every day after each meal, morning, noon, and night. And then also substituting sweeter candies or things like that for maybe like fruits, or juices or something like that. Something with a little bit less sugar, because they still need sugars. So you don't want to take all of that away, but just buying maybe healthier treats.
I feel like we need to advertise healthier foods more and promote drinking water, because I know a lot of kids, like a lot of people in my family, they drink soda nonstop, and my brothers and sisters have cavities from it. So really, I think parents, and there needs to be more advertisement of just the benefits of drinking water and eating healthier.
Well, Courtland, what did you think?
That was a great video. The one girl, she was on your same page about the chocolate-covered raisins.
She was, and I think for the most part, the New Yorkers were thinking about healthy snacks,
Yeah.
and they really had a couple of clear messages to the parents.
Right, there was one young girl, she was really pushing drinking a lot of water rather than juices or soda, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great video. Again, our interns did a phenomenal job. The friends that we have in New York City, very opinionated, very good answers to some really good questions, I think.
Yes.
All the way around. It was a great video. Well, Courtland, now is our favorite time of the show.
Yes.
We have our guest in the studio, Dr. Patel. But just before we get into engaging in a discussion about allergies and food allergies, I'd like to remind everybody that Dr. Patel is the Assistant Professor of Allergy and Immunology at the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary of Mount Sinai. He's an expert when it comes to allergies and food allergies, and we're very excited to have him here today. Dr. Patel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We have so many questions to ask you. You were sitting there listening to our health tips, and I am, as we get into it, curious to see if you see a little spike in nut allergies over the Halloween season, or maybe over the holidays in general, with all the kind of treats and snacks that appear on everybody's holiday table. We'll get into that. But Courtland, we've got so much to go on and ask. So why don't you kick us off and start the process?
Well, I would love to. So Dr. Patel, can you kind of just set the stage first by telling our viewers what exactly a food allergy is?
So food allergy is an immune-mediated response, an abnormal response to a particular food. So when we think about this, we typically think about the traditional allergic immune system, where basically a food is looked at as a potential invader or foreign kind of particle that's in the body, in which the response is for the allergy cells to release a few different chemicals, which then create a lot of symptoms such as the itchy mouth, swelling of the throat, difficulty breathing, maybe some hives. But there's also a gamut of food intolerances within that as well.
Interesting. So you're a practicing physician.
That's correct.
You're also an assistant professor.
Correct.
So tell me, if there is a typical day for Dr. Patel, what does that day look like? You get up in the morning and what happens?
Right. So I love my job, so I'm always excited to head into the office every day. And usually, Monday to Friday, I am seeing patients from morning till evening. These are patients of all across the age spectrum, from babies all the way to geriatric older adults, in a variety of different food issues or allergy issues, whether it be seasonal allergies or food allergies or asthma or eczema, as well as assessment to see if there's any dysfunction in their immune system. With my assistant professor title, I am working to educate the ear, nose, and throat residents at the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary about allergic diseases and how to manage them and pick up on them.
Now, how does an allergy develop? Are you born with an allergy? Is it in your genes, or does it develop over time, or maybe a little bit of both?
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good question. That's one that often comes up, particularly by parents when they have children with either food or environmental allergies. And the short story is it's multifactorial. Part of it is from just strictly by chance. There is a little bit that can come on from genetic inheritance. So if one patient has any type of allergic disease, this means asthma, food allergy, hay fever, then they can increase the risk of their offspring having an allergy, some type of allergy, by 20%. Then when you have two parents, it's up to 40 to 50% of an increased incidence of their child having an allergy as well, or developing one of the allergic diseases.
Interesting.
So when you were telling us about what exactly a food allergy is, you had also touched on intolerance. So can you kind of define the difference between food allergy and a food intolerance?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So over at New York IND, or where I work, I do see a lot of patients who come for evaluations for like what we call rhinitis, nasal inflammation, runny nose. A lot of them will come in asking like, oh, do I have a food allergy that's creating this persistent runny nose that I have? And some will reckon that if they, for example, consume dairy, they get very mucousy and feel like they have increased secretions in that way. While there's no defined mechanism that we can identify that explains why they feel more mucousy when they consume dairy, that's an example of what we would say is maybe an intolerance, because they have some symptoms that come from a particular food, but it's not that traditional type of allergy where they consume the food, they get swelling of their mouth, hives, or anything like that. So it must be a different mechanism. Other food intolerances are a lot more common. I think one of the most common is like lactose intolerance. So these are individuals who might drink like milk or ice cream and then develop either like gastric bloating, so a bloating sensation, or diarrhea or nausea. So that's not an allergy, that's more of an intolerance. And there's a wide gamut of intolerances. One of the ones we hear about the most currently is one with gluten, where patients will remove gluten from their diet and feel better in a lot of different ways. We don't have testing, or we don't know the mechanism of it, but it's not an allergy, it would be more of an intolerance.
So that's interesting. So the symptoms can be somewhat confusing to the patient, right? Whether it's
Precisely.
an allergy or an intolerance.
Right.
And then you hit on a good point about this gluten. 10 years ago, no one heard about gluten. Now everything is gluten-free and gluten this and gluten that. It's amazing to me. I mean, do we invent these things? I mean, what happens here?
So that's really funny, Dave. I was speaking with somebody and they made a really good point. They said, gluten intolerance and a lot of these food intolerances are kind of first world issues. You don't go to Africa or Southeast Asia and really hear about like gluten intolerance or anything like that. But then again, their level of healthcare is a little bit different. What I tell my patients is that, if they feel like they go off of a food and they feel subjectively better, like that removing gluten makes them feel better or removing rice makes them feel better, I fully advocate it, because I think, one of the things that a lot of these intolerances, these foods that are implicated in having intolerances, they're not always the most healthiest. So if someone goes gluten-free, they're going to increase the fruits and vegetables in their diet, and they're going to remove the refined starches and refined, wheat in their diet. So that's a good way to get out simple carbs. So, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, who knows? It's here to stay, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any harm in doing it. But like I said, there's no testing other than for celiac disease for a gluten intolerance or allergy.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about reactions to food allergies. Some people just kind of get an itchy mouth, or they feel like their tongue is really swollen, whereas some people who may have like a nut allergy, for example, that allergy could potentially be deadly. Mm-hmm. So, how is it that some reactions are so much more severe than others?
So that's a great question, Courtland. So, this is one of the things working with an allergist can be really beneficial to the patient, because there are certain allergies which are cross reactions, one we call oral allergy syndrome. This is a cross reaction between a pollen and certain proteins in the fruit. Now, those will tend to be more limited symptoms to the mouth, like maybe itchy mouth, itchy tongue, throat. The thing is, those particular proteins which that patient is allergic to tends to break down once it reaches the stomach. So when that happens, the reaction has kind of gone away. However, things like nut allergies are much more severe, same with seafood, shellfish allergies. That's because these proteins are very stable. They don't break down when you cook them or anything like that. So then they can be absorbed by the patient into their full system and then create a large variety of reactions and even more severe reactions, such as the ones we hear about, anaphylaxis.
So what are some of the signs that, our viewers are out there watching this show and maybe their child sniffles or coughs or has a little bit of mucus or, when is it time to see an allergist?
Yeah, so there's a variety of reasons for seeing an allergist. As I mentioned, there is a genetic component to it. So if we do have, say, 1 or 2 parents with any history of allergies and they notice that their child is having kind of a persistent sniffle or something like that, that's a good time to see an allergist. What's really great at the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary is that I work alongside the ear, nose, and throat doctors. So it's coordinated care, because if I see the child and they have persistent sniffles or runny nose and I don't find there's an allergic cause, then it's great to involve the help of my ENT colleagues to see if there's something structural going on. So it's always great to work with the pediatrician to see if testing can be done, or a referral to an allergist to help delineate what the actual issue is.
So a couple of minutes ago, we were just talking about the gluten allergy and how, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't really widely known. And it seems like it definitely has skyrocketed and become, really big, really fast. So do you think that maybe there's more of a prevalence of food allergies in the U.S., or are we just as a society more aware of it?
Yeah, so that's a good question, but the data seems to indicate there's actually an increase in food allergies rather than just an increase in knowledge about food allergies. In the late 1990s, the prevalence among children for food allergy was about 3.5%. The most recent studies have seen that actually increase to 5%. So it's actually increasing rather than just, as a disease increases, the general public knowledge increases as well. But I think this is a genuine increase in actual allergic disease that we're seeing.
Wow, very interesting. So as a kid, I grew up with allergies. Hay fever, seasonal allergies, quite severe. And I remember going to the allergist, and I sat down in this chair and they drew this grid on my back and I got all these shots in these little squares. And the allergist sat there and his assistant sat there with a pen and a paper, and he called out these numbers, 1 through 4, I think, 1, 3, 2, 4.
Sure.
Looking at the reaction in each one of those little squares from the shot that he had injected in that little square. Is that how we do it today, or have we seen some advancements in technology that there's a different way of going about getting tested for allergies, or is it still that gridding of the back and all those little annoying shots and you walk out itching like crazy?
No, we're less barbaric than when you were a child.
Years of therapy, I'm still not over it, as you can see.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, Mom, if you're watching,
So the techniques have changed quite a bit, yeah. We do have more comfortable testing devices that we do use, which are almost like, if you can imagine, just like a little toothpick. What happens is those are, it has the extract of the plant or the food embedded on it, and then it's just a simple, just a little press on the skin. The really great thing about that that we do in our allergy office is that we can see the results in 15 minutes. Whereas like if you do a blood test, it may not contain all the components of the allergy molecule, and so you might miss allergies by doing it that way. And also you have to wait for the lab results. So one is the skin testing that we do, as I mentioned, kind of like a toothpick, just 15 minutes, and you have your results. There is also now blood testing available to look for environmental and food allergies. That can be helpful in some cases. It is a little bit of a slippery slope, because if you go to your primary doctor and say, can you get me a food panel, and you didn't actually have a real good history of food allergies, sometimes you can actually have a positive level but not be allergic to it. We actually call that sensitization. So it's really important to actually direct your testing based on what you're looking for. Because what happens, particularly in pediatrics, when they do this, is sometimes you might be taking away foods you don't need to, and then you're creating harm to the actual patient because they're removing nutritious foods, and then they're going down a path of malnutrition. So this is why working with the allergist is really important, because you don't want to get into this slippery slope of removing things that you don't need to.
Interesting, and I have to tell you, I was put on medication and it really helped me a lot. So if you want to get in touch with Dr. Patel, there's two ways of going about it. One, you can call his office, schedule an appointment to go see him. That number is 212-979-4200, or you can find him on the web at nyee.edu. So if your child or yourself is feeling a little under the weather, you might think it's an allergy, food allergy or otherwise, I encourage you to go see an allergist. I encourage you to go see Dr. Patel. Again, 212-979-4200 or nyee.edu.
Well, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about treatments. So, I know that there's treatments you can do after you've already started to experience some symptoms of a food allergy. You can take Benadryl, you can do an EpiPen shot. Is there anything else you can do, or some things that you can do, before eating or anything like that?
So that's, again, a really great question, something I'm really excited about. So some of this testing I was talking about through the blood, we're actually now able to stratify the different proteins in certain foods, namely milk, egg, and peanut. So, the evidence shows that most children, by the time they reach kindergarten, will actually outgrow a milk or egg allergy. So what we do at our office is we're able to obtain these tests and look and see when it might be a safe time to introduce a food. Now, how this goes into allergy treatment is that there's studies that show that if you're able to tolerate, say, baked egg and you have an egg allergy, it increases your rate of outgrowing the egg allergy. The mechanism is thought that maybe by giving small amounts of this egg protein, you're actually kind of doing almost like allergy shots, except, for food through the mouth. So that's one thing that, we've been really advocating on, and it's been working really well with the families who have children with food allergies. Because really, removing a food allergy, if possible, is really helpful for the families. The parents aren't so stressed out anymore. And likewise, the children aren't being deprived, from foods that the children they're around are eating as well.
Yeah. So, Doc, I want to get in a question here. We had one of our viewers email us in and that saw you were going to be on the show. Has got a question. This is Beth from Oklahoma City, and she says that she's 6.5 months pregnant, and she has heard that breastfeeding her baby, the newborn, will help build that immune system of that child up. So she's wondering, is this something that she should consider? Is this true, or is this something that she's just heard and it's not true?
Okay. Well, hello, Beth. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for the great question. Yes, so there's plenty of studies that actually show that breast milk is protective against what we call atopic disease, allergic disease. One of the most popular ones we know about is that against protecting against the development of eczema, which is one of the types of allergic diseases. In conjunction to kind of protection against allergic diseases, breast milk has a variety of other protective functions. So it really is the best nutrition for your child. It strengthens the immune system, it decreases the incidence of allergies, it decreases the incidence of infections. So really there's, the best a mother can adhere to breastfeeding is really going to be, beneficial to her child.
Perfect.
So, Dr. Patel, a lot of schools are forbidding peanut products and things like that into cafeterias or from being served during lunchtime because of children food allergies. Can you kind of maybe talk about why this is or how it could be helpful? If I'm allergic to peanuts and Dave is eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how does that really affect me?
Right. So, yeah, again, this one becomes a little bit tough because it's really, it's almost like the vaccination, to vaccinate or not, because your child won't have it, why should that preclude mine? And then same thing with foods, because one child has a peanut allergy, why should my child not be able to eat peanut? And I think it comes down to because the fact that it could be a life-threatening reaction. Unfortunately, multiple times a year, we do have cases of children dying, young lives being lost because of their food allergy. Many times it's actually peanut that's the culprit food. And often it's by accident. We see this a lot in actually our adolescent patients where they'll go to a sleepover or something like that and by mistake been given a cookie with peanut in it. Likewise, children love to share their food. They're very engaging with each other, very gregarious. And so, like, you know, if one kid is eating a peanut butter sandwich, you never know, like, if just by mistake that peanut butter sandwich might go into the kid's mouth with the peanut allergy, even though they know they're not supposed to eat it. So this is the reason we're being more steadfast about keeping peanut-free zones. But with the testing I mentioned, we're able to see how severe a patient might be to peanuts. So that's also something we have in our toolbox to help the parents out.
Well, Doc, we're almost out of time. One last question, I think, you know, or comment. If there's one thing you want our audience and our viewers to know about allergies and food allergies, what would that be?
So I think one of the most important things that our audience can take from this is that, you know, there is resources available if you do have a food allergy, and it's not necessary that a food allergy is going to be lifelong. So by working in conjunction with your allergist, you really can, you know, optimize your lifestyle, and even you might be able to find out that you don't even have the allergy anymore, or clarify what your intolerances are when it comes to foods. So.
Well, again, Dr. Patel can be reached at 212-979-4200 or nyee.edu. Doc, thank you very much for coming in. This has been a great conversation. You're doing great work, and keep it up. So thanks again for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
I'd like to thank the viewers for tuning in, and I'd like to thank our sponsors, of course, for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthyO360.com, and our podcast can be found in the iTunes store. Courtland?
Well, we love social media, and we're all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, using that hashtag #RealStories when posting, and we'd really appreciate it if you would do the same. On behalf of Dave Duplay, myself, and the entire Healthy O360 family, we hope you have a great day, a safe Halloween, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.